We see cases where companies have amazing employees, resources, and great products or services. Yet, the company is struggling to find their feet and reach their strategic goals. Well, that is where organizational design comes in. This lesson will give you the insight to understanding your current organizational design, and it will help you to understand what is helping and hindering your company as a whole. Organizational design gives you an edge as a manager or leader. It gives you the insight to holistically look at a company and evaluate the inner workings of that company. Ideally, the two structures, hierarchy and relationship structures, wrap around each other to ensure responsibility, to keep information flow and creation of power. As you can see, organizational design is the structure that supports the flow of information, the flow of communication, and how employees interact with each other. Today's lesson, we are going to look at organizational design. Our objectives include organizational design introduction, the tools and approaches that you need, and finally, we are going to look at how to evaluate and build on your current organizational design. So let's kick off with our first section. When a company's communication is not working, teams are not working, and things are not getting done, a lot of managers and leaders overlook the importance of organizational design. We will overcome these obstacles and empower you as a manager and leader by looking at this section. Organizational design is a human-centered approach to improving how people work together and how companies respond to change. Organizational design borrows from the design thinking toolkit. So it looks at empathy, system thinking, creation, and experimentation. Through interactive design cycles, organizational designers work with teams in their native environment to identify opportunities for improvement and test the fit of potential new ways of working. According to Academy.com, organizational design is the next frontier of design thinking, and according to Deloitte, it's an important concern for more than 90% of senior leaders. But like design thinking, when it was introduced, few leaders have experienced organizational design firsthand, or they haven't even been trained on how it works or how to implement it successfully. So although people can see the importance of it, we need more managers and leaders to be trained in this topic. So why is organizational design so important? Well, I have just that coming up now. An effective organizational design helps you to be proactive in dealing with different situations. You can look at different ways to problem solve, different ways of working within a company, different departments, and different department inner workings. Organizational design enables people to work together and understand the structure of the company. An effective organizational design gives the company a competitive advantage. As we said, it's a better way to communicate, use resources, collaborate, and people have a clear idea of communication. So, as a whole, the company performs better. An effective organizational design takes diversity into account. You can look at different people that would work as top leaders, executives, board of directors, and where to slot them in. This is all part of organizational design, succession planning, and the overall workings of the company. Finally, because we have all the structures in place, everyone knows what they're doing, we see better communication, creativity, collaboration, and as a result, we see increased efficiency. Next up, I want to share a few facts with you guys before we move on. Did you know 88% of this year's survey respondents believe that building an organization of the future is an important or very important issue? Only 11% of survey respondents believe they understand how to build the organization of the future. Finally, we see that 14% of executives believe that the traditional organizational model is effective. So instead, we see that leading companies are pushing forward for a more flexible, team-centric model. So the traditional model is moving out, and we see a new and better organizational design being preferred by top leaders and managers. Well, let's look at some ways that you can tell if your organization design is working or not. We're going to do this by looking at signs of organizational design issues. So first off, we're going to see that targets are not being met. This can be due to different reasons. Maybe you don't have resources, you don't have the correct people for different roles, but it can also be due to organizational design issues because people don't have the structures to actually work with each other. So we can see a few things happening. Departments will struggle to collaborate, they will struggle to obtain and use resources, decision making is weak and lacks efficiency, metrics are hard to define and overly complex. We see role confusion, turf issues, people not willing to share or work with each other. And finally, productivity declines. So all of this can be that there are a few things wrong within a department. That you can see that the entire company is struggling with these issues in different departments, there is an issue. So as a manager and a leader, you can suggest looking into the organizational design to see what is working and what is not. So that is why it is so important to understand this term, understand what it does and the importance of it to state your case. So take all of that in and take a quick brain break as I review the sneak peek coming up in Lesson 3. In Lesson 3, I will give you the insight you need when it comes to strategic thinking, planning, and strategic time management. This is going to help you a lot with decision making, problem solving, and coming up with plans as a manager and leader. So, fun lesson coming up next, which is a great topic to start reading up about. But for now, let's move back and have a look at organizational design tools and approaches. Let's have a look at the different tools. Here we see it allows for design of a better aligned workforce that supports business strategies. It maintains lines of communication and creates an environment that supports and nurtures your best talent throughout the design process. This tool has features to help you visualize global HR data, to help you look at the systems, what is working and what is not. It also helps look at diversity and inclusion. This software also helps you design and model the organization to meet company objectives and strategies. Here we see that you're able to upload an Excel file with the organizational contact information and reporting structure, and you can watch that chart come to life. You can also manually build out your structure and drag the different members of the organization into your chart. It helps you to visually see the organizational design and the different departments. Here we see that monitoring important metrics that are the cornerstone of your organizational design. This software will help you out. Here we see charting with cross filters provides a multi-dimensional view of headcounts and FTE. It helps you to forecast, look at wages, span of control, location, demographics, and diversity. So these are great tools that you can use in your organizational design to visually establish the organization, the flow of information, and look at diversity and inclusion. So let's look at some types of organizational design. According to Matrix, a simple structure is defined as a design to low departmentalization, wide span of control, and little formalization. The type of design is very common for small or startup businesses. For example, in a business with few employees, the owner tends to be the one manager and controls all of the functions of the business. Next up, a functional structure is defined as the design that groups similar or related occupation. It is a functional approach to looking at departments and applying that to the organization. So you can look at who is in the department, if there's diversity, inclusion, and it will help you with succession planning. It can also help you to look at how the different departments are collaborating and communicating with each other. Continuing on. A division structure is made up of separate, semi-autonomous units or divisions. Within one company, there may be different divisions and each division has its own goals to accomplish. A manager oversees that division and is completely responsible for the success or the failure of that division. Next up, a team structure is a design in which an organization is made up of teams, and each team works towards a common goal. Since the organization is made up of different groups to perform the functions of the company, teams must perform well because they are held accountable for their performance. In a team-structured organization, there is no hierarchy or chain of command. Therefore, teams can work the way they want to and figure out what is the most effective way to get things done. A metric structure is one that assigns specialists or different function departments to work on one or more projects. In an organization, there may be different projects going on at the same time. Each specific project is assigned to a project manager, and the project manager has the duty of allocating the resources and getting different people to accomplish the project. A project structure is an organizational structure in which employees continuously work on the project. This is like the metric structure, however, when the project ends, the employees don't go back to their departments. They continuously work on projects in a team-like structure. Each team has the necessary employees to successfully complete the project. Each employee brings his or her specialized skills to the team. And finally, some large organizations have adopted this type of structure. The organization is therefore comprised of many independent, decentralized units, each with its own product, clients, competitors, and a way to make profit. So there is no way to centralize the control or resource allocation for that organization. So keeping in mind the different types of organizations helps you when creating the design. It is so important to understand the needs of each team, organization, and what needs to be accomplished. That way you can look at how they are communicating, collaborating, using resources, and how the line of authority and communication is set up. Finally, the last section of this lesson, we're going to look at how to evaluate and build your current organizational design. The organizational design is really like that of a centipede that walk on 100 legs and 1 or 2 don't count. So if you lose 1 or 2 legs, the process will go on, the organization will go on, the growth will go on. This means that there are different parts to an organization, and we need each part to be extremely strong. So when 1 or 2 departments or people fail, the organization can still keep going. But because organizational design is not as strong in all companies, when 1 or 2 people or divisions fail, the entire company can crumble. That is why it is so important to understand the needs of the company, needs of team members, teams, divisions, calibration, all of these things in order to create an organizational design that is effective and that adds value to the company as a whole. So let's look at how you can evaluate your current organizational structure. According to Edward Lowe, how do you communicate with your staff? What do you want your frontline employees to represent and to present to customers? Do you want finance talking to marketing? So look at your current company. Are they speaking to each other? How do you actually want departments to speak to each other, to collaborate? And is there actual lines of communication? If not, you have to take a step back and look at your organizational structure and design. Because if their design does not accommodate for communication, it makes it harder for people to collaborate, share ideas, innovation, and share resources. As a result, employees are not inclined to do this, and the company will lose out. Next up, something to think about is the amount of freedom and creativity that you want in your organizational structure. So look at how much freedom and creativity should your employees have in order to accomplish their jobs. If the frontline employees work on assembly line, a top-down hierarchy may be effective. If creative teams make your product, then move to more of an autonomous departmental structure, as it will help the employees be creative and work with each other. So you have to look at how much specialized expertise is needed for a job, how do the employees interact with each other, and what structure will best support the different types of department, employees, and functions of your company. So here you can look at things like if the company is a service or manufacturing organization. Manufacturing organizations can benefit from having certain levels of autonomy and creative decision making. But this is offset by the need for consistency and quality in production. So it is needed to understand how you're going to structure the entire department. Maybe you have a manager, a team leader, a supervisor, all of these things, because it helps with quality control. But if you add a lot of authority within a department where creativity is needed, autonomy, people want to feel empowered, you may not need all of those roles in order to accomplish the creativity. So, like we said, think of what your company is producing and what you need from each employee. Finally, we look at which qualities are more important to your market share. Is it looking at product stability and a long-term product or service, or is it looking at flexibility and rapid change? So maybe you have to change with the market, you have to follow up with trends. So these things will help you look at your organizational design and if your current hierarchies, structures, and communication is working. So let's look at the organizational design process. When developing your plan of action, this will mean establishing project charters, conducting a snapshot assessment of what is working, what is not, educating your leaders on what should be happening. You can also commission a design team to help look at different options that you have for the company and the organization. You can look at creating change management strategies to create an organizational design that helps you achieve your strategies. So start evaluating what works, what doesn't work. Once you have the information of what is working, what is not working, you can start to scan the external environment. You can look at assessing your current mission, vision, values, strategies, and goals. It will help you to establish your core ideology and set up the strategies that will help you for the long term. Once you have your strategy set up, you can set up an organizational design that works for you. This means that you understand what the employees want, what your customers want, and future upcoming trends. Because, as we said, the traditional model may not be working for a lot of companies. That is why innovation and research is needed of what is trends in your industry. This will help you evaluate if your current structure is working and what is going to be needed within the next couple of years. You also want to analyze and assess the processes, structures, systems, and the cultural needs of your company. This way you can add to the change management strategies because you know what is needed. You can also assess the strategies that you have outlined in the previous step. This will help you see if the organizational design will work, what will not work, and look at the company as a whole. Like we said, looking at structures and culture needs to be taken into account. Continuing on, here we will look at design. So you're going to establish design guidelines, define the business model, and here you're going to work as a team. You can redesign processes, structures, systems, and the culture to fit the organizational design. So as we said, culture looks at diversity, learning, all of these things, and it is so important to add every change that you do into your company culture. And with that, verifying the design that you've selected. So once we've designed, we're going to move into transitioning. This means commissioning the implementation team to flesh out the design recommendations. They're going to look at creating detailed implementation plans to make sure that everyone is trained, they understand the new roles, skills, where they fit in, how everything works. So you have that process of how everything is going to be implemented beforehand. So this is part of your planning stage. Next up, you're going to go live. This means that you're implementing that plan that your transition team planned and that they have ready to go. This means that you're implementing your new organizational structure and you're continuing with your change management strategies. So these two go hand in hand. Make sure that you are transparent, communicating, and explaining the value of every step. Finally, you need to evaluate and update. This means assessing the performance of the organizational design against balanced scorecards. Make adjustments to the design if needed and continue to train your managers and employees in order for them to reach those goals. This is a great way to see if the organizational design is working, where it needs to be updated, and if there is still resistance to change. You can go back, change a few things around based on the feedback from your managers, leaders, and your employees. Well guys, that brings me to the end of this lesson. Thank you for sticking around, and I hope that you see the value of organizational design. This topic needs a lot more investment and investigation, so I do recommend going after this lesson, reading up on the different types of organizational design, and then using your own company design as an example to kick you off with. Next up, let's have a look at a few organizational design examples. First off, we have the line structure. According to Heflo, the traditional line structure is organized in such a way that a president or CEO is on top of the organizational chart. Then there are directors or VPs, or specific areas, followed by managers and so on, until the operational personnel. The structure can be seen in the example that I have here for you guys. It's a very rigid structure with little information exchange, typical of very large companies with very little collaboration. In this way, one area doesn't interfere with the work of another, and the staff only obeys the orders of the immediate superior. So as you can see here, there's very little collaboration. People don't really get to work on different projects, passion projects, or they don't really get to extend their knowledge, skills to different departments and areas within the business. With this line organization structure, the company is very limited. But we can also see a few benefits. You have direct line of reports, everyone knows what they have to do. So it has to come down to what type of business you are, what you want from your organizational design, and again, thinking of future trends. So you can ask yourself the question, do you think this organizational structure will be relevant within the next couple of years? So as we said before, a lot of companies had this structure before, and now as time is progressing, they're moving to more of a modern organizational design where people can collaborate, share, be creative, innovative. And those are the things we have to keep in mind when looking at your current structure, where it needs to be, and what does that mean. But it's not as easy as that. We have to use persuasion, we have to collect information when you are progressing, if you are thinking of changing organizational design. Next up, we have the functional structure. The functional organizational structure derives from the line structure. The difference is that employees in an area need to report to all the directors. An employee from the finance department may be called upon by the HR department to handle a related matter in this area, and the IT manager may do the same, and so forth. It's a way to avoid centralization and excessive specialization in tasks in your area. So here we can see people have more of a cross-function organizational chart where people can speak to different directors, where they can share information, and where they can collaborate. Today, it's the most used structure in many companies and organizations, but this doesn't mean it's the best one. Everything will depend on the relationship between managers and especially the appropriate use of IT to aid in internal communication. So as you can think, the more cross lines you have, the more difficult communication gets. So it is so important to have collaboration tools where you can keep track of different projects, what people are up to, reporting lines, and how people should communicate. It's more important to have an established routine and a way to communicate than leaving it up to people. So you have a bit of standardization when it comes to communication and the processes that you would like to see in the company. So there you guys have it. There are a few examples of organizational charts and structures that we find within a company. And there are so many different ones that you can have a look at. As I said before, make sure to go Google a few company organizational charts that you are interested in. This will give you a good understanding of what is trendy, what is coming up, and why these things work. That brings me to the end of this lesson. Thank you all, and I would just like to review a bit of housekeeping before I end this lesson. Make sure to watch your class at any time and date. You can always go back and change the date if your current schedule is not working for you. Make sure to go back and watch any lesson that you've already reviewed. It's a great way to go back, see if you still understand the different terms, and if you understand the different topics. Just a reminder, go check out your toolkit items. In that, you'll look at module notes, lesson slides, and your bonus content. Finally, that brings me to this lesson challenge, and it's not going to be easy. I don't expect anyone to be ready to create an organizational design from nothing. But I would like to ask you that you evaluate your current structure. Look at things like communication, resource sharing, and use, collaboration between departments. I also recommend researching some amazing organizational designs. I also recommend looking at organizations that you love, companies that you admire, and look at their organizational design. It helps to look at a company that you are familiar with and that you like. Then compare that to your current company. It will give you insight and ensure that you understand what is happening. Then let's have a quick look at your progress. Well done for completing this lesson. I hope that you're enjoying everything that Module 3 has to offer. Just a quick reminder that in Lesson 3, we are going to look at strategic thinking, planning, and strategic time management. Make sure to push yourself with each lesson and attempt to try the lesson challenges. This will help you establish if you have a good understanding of the different terms in each lesson. With that, have a great day, and I will speak to you all soon.